"Your concerns are overblown and costly," Lucas said, staring me down across the conference table. "We need people who prioritize efficiency." My name is Frank Delaney, 57 years old and plant operations manager at Ironwood Forge for the past 14 years. Before that, I spent 21 years working my way up from the factory floor in Akron, Ohio. I knew every machine, every safety protocol, and every shortcut that could cost a man his fingers, or worse. Lucas Wynn had been CEO for exactly 7 months, brought in by the board to streamline operations and maximize shareholder value. The kind of man who wore Italian shoes to a metal fabrication plant and talked about pain points and growth metrics while stepping over oil puddles that should have been cleaned up weeks ago. The first red flag came when he canceled our quarterly safety training. "A full day of production lost," he called it. Then maintenance schedules became flexible. Parts replacements were delayed. Warning signs disappeared from dangerous areas to reduce visual clutter. I raised concerns in private first, showed him the statistics, the near-miss reports, the industry standards we were now ignoring. He nodded, smiled, and did nothing. So I documented everything. Every violation, every ignored recommendation, every maintenance request denied. That morning, I'd emailed the executive team about a critical hydraulic press that needed emergency maintenance. The pressure gauges were failing, and the safety shield had cracked. Using it was like playing Russian roulette. I recommended shutting it down immediately. 2 hours later, I was called into the conference room with the entire leadership team present. That's when Lucas delivered his verdict. "Frank, we appreciate your years of service, but your priorities no longer align with our vision for Ironwood Forge." Around the table, eyes dropped. Nobody spoke up. These were people I'd worked alongside for years, people whose families I knew by name. Now they studied their notepads like they contained the secrets of the universe. "You'll receive 2 months severance," Lucas continued. "Human resources will handle the exit process." I didn't argue, didn't raise my voice, just nodded once and stood up. As I walked to the door, Vanessa from finance caught my eye for just a second. There was something there, fear mixed with respect. She knew what was happening was wrong. They all did. But I also knew something Lucas didn't. My documentation hadn't just gone into company emails that could be deleted. I had copies, detailed, comprehensive, and ready to be submitted to people who would actually care. I started at Ironwood Forge back when it was called Midwestern Metal Works. Began on 3rd shift running a stamping machine 6 months after my 19th birthday. Hot, dangerous work, but it paid better than anything else in Akron for a kid with just a high school diploma. My father had worked 42 years at Goodyear before his retirement. "Make yourself necessary," he told me my first day. "Learn everything. Be the guy they can't replace." So I did. Learned every machine. Took night classes in industrial engineering. Volunteered for the safety committee because nobody else wanted it. By my 15th year, I was floor supervisor. By my 21st, operations manager for the whole plant. 350 people reported up to me. I knew their strengths, their weaknesses, which ones needed a firm hand, and which ones worked better with encouragement. My wife Elaine used to tease me, "You care more about those machines than our own kitchen appliances." Maybe she was right. Our dishwasher had been making a grinding noise for 6 months. But at work, I knew that a grinding noise could mean someone losing a hand by the end of the shift. When Old Man Winters ran the company, safety was priority 1. "Production targets don't matter if someone doesn't go home to their family," he'd say. The safety record was posted at the entrance every month, and bonuses were tied to keeping accident rates low. After he retired, Ironwood drifted through 3 different ownership groups in 10 years, each one a little less connected to the work we actually did, each one a little more focused on quarterly numbers. Lucas was just the latest and worst in that progression. The first time we met, he asked how quickly we could double production. I told him we'd need to hire more people and maybe add another shift. He frowned like I'd insulted him. "What about just running the machines harder?" he asked. Warning bells went off in my head right there. But I tried. God knows I tried to make him understand how things worked on the floor. For months, I watched the small changes pile up. Maintenance intervals stretched. Safety equipment became optional. Experienced workers who raised concerns were the first to be let go when Lucas started his efficiency layoffs. I still remembered Tommy Wilson, 26 years with the company, finding me in the parking lot the day after he was cut. "You're the only one left who remembers how things should be, Frank," he said. "Don't let them turn that place into a death trap." I promised him I wouldn't. Now I was walking to my office to clean out my desk, that promise still echoing in my ears. Human Resources gave me 30 minutes to collect my things. Cheryl from HR stood awkwardly by the door while I emptied my desk. We'd worked together for 12 years. Now she couldn't meet my eyes. "I need your keys and badge," she said finally, "and you'll need to sign these." She slid termination papers across the desk. I signed without reading them. What was the point? My career at Ironwood was over either way. As I was packing the last of my personal items, a coffee mug my daughter made in high school ceramics class, a few family photos, Terry Baker from maintenance appeared in the doorway. Cheryl stepped outside to give us a minute. "This is wrong, Frank," Terry whispered. "Everyone knows it." I just nodded, keeping my voice low. "How's that hydraulic press running?" "They've got Jason operating it now. Kid's been here 8 months, Frank, 8 months. Terry shook his head. "Lucas told us to hit the production targets no matter what." My stomach tightened. Jason was a good kid, eager to please. Too eager. "Be careful, Terry," I said, handing him my box of belongings. "Watch out for yourself." In the parking lot, I sat in my truck for a long time, staring at the building where I'd spent more than half my life. The reality of what happened was finally hitting me. My job was gone. My identity as the safety man was gone. But that wasn't what bothered me most. People were going to get hurt, maybe killed, and Lucas Wynn would write it off as an acceptable cost of doing business. I started the truck but didn't drive home. Instead, I went to the public library, logged onto a computer, and spent 3 hours organizing all my documentation. Every email, every inspection report, every maintenance request that had been denied, photos I'd taken of blocked fire exits, disabled machine guards, and leaking chemical containers. Then I wrote a detailed cover letter explaining the systematic dismantling of safety protocols at Ironwood Forge since Lucas Wynn had taken over. When I was finished, I drove to the nearest FedEx location and sent the entire package to the Occupational Safety and Health Administration office in Columbus. On the way home, a strange calm settled over me. For months, I'd been fighting a losing battle inside the system, following the rules, respecting the chain of command, trying to protect my people while playing by Lucas's rigged game. Now I was free of those constraints. As I pulled into my driveway, my phone buzzed. A text from Vanessa in finance. "Lucas is having them run that hydraulic press around the clock. 3 shifts. No maintenance break. What should we do?" I didn't respond immediately. Instead, I went inside, kissed Elaine hello, and poured myself a rare glass of bourbon. "You're home early," she said, studying my face. "I got fired." Her eyes widened. "What? Why?" "For doing my job," I said, taking a slow sip. "But I'm not finished yet." I picked up my phone and texted Vanessa back. "Document everything. I've got a plan." 3 days later, I got a call from Patricia Simmons at OSHA. "Mr. Delaney, we've reviewed your submission regarding Ironwood Forge," she said. "I'd like to discuss some of these allegations in person." We met at a coffee shop 20 miles from Akron. Patricia was younger than I expected, maybe mid-30s, but her questions were precise and knowledgeable. She'd clearly done her homework. "We take these reports seriously," she said after 2 hours of detailed discussion, "especially when they come from someone with your experience. But you should know that Ironwood has a spotless official record." "Of course they do," I said. "Lucas has been falsifying the internal accident reports, paying off minor injuries out of petty cash, threatening people's jobs if they complain." Patricia nodded, making notes. "We'll need to conduct an inspection. It may take a few weeks to get approval and arrange the visit. People might not have a few weeks, I said, thinking of that hydraulic press running 24 hours a day. I understand your concern, but we have procedures. Procedures won't help Jason Parker if that press fails, I interrupted. Or anyone else on that floor. She gave me a sympathetic look. I'll expedite things as much as I can. In the meantime, is there anyone still at Ironwood who might speak with us? I thought about it. Maybe. But they'd be risking their jobs. After Patricia left, I sat there feeling the weight of time pressing down. Bureaucracy moved slowly. Industrial accidents happened in an instant. That evening, I called Terry Baker. "How's it looking in there?" I asked when he answered. "Bad, Frank. Really bad." His voice was low, like he was afraid of being overheard. "That press is making noises I've never heard before. Lucas has got 3 temps running it who barely know which button turns it on. I tried to show them proper procedures, and he pulled me aside, said if I didn't get with the program, I'd be next. OSHA's going to inspect, I told him, but it might take weeks." The silence on the line told me everything. "Someone's going to get hurt before then," Terry finally said. "I know. I'm trying to speed things up." The next morning, I drove to the office of the Akron Gazette and asked to speak with their investigative reporter. After a brief wait, I was introduced to Olivia Jimenez, a sharp-eyed woman with a recorder and a skeptical expression. "So you're claiming unsafe conditions at Ironwood Forge?" she asked after I'd given her the outline of my story. "I'm not claiming anything," I said. "I've got documentation." I showed her some of the photos I'd kept copies of. Disabled emergency stops, blocked fire exits, missing machine guards. "This could be any factory anywhere," she said. "How do I know it's Ironwood?" "Because I worked there for 35 years until they fired me for complaining about these exact issues." Her eyes narrowed. "So this is about revenge?" "This is about preventing funerals," I countered. "Run the story or don't. But if someone dies in that plant while you're deciding, how will you feel?" Olivia studied me for a long moment. "I need more than just your word. Are there current employees who would verify these conditions?" Before I could answer, my phone rang. It was Vanessa. "Frank," she said, her voice shaking. "There's been an accident. The hydraulic press. Jason's hurt bad. Ambulance just left." My stomach dropped. "How bad?" "They're saying he might lose his arm." I looked at Olivia. "You just got your verification." 2 hours later, Lucas Wynn held a press conference outside Ironwood Forge. He stood with perfect posture in his perfect suit, expressing deep concern for Jason's unfortunate accident. "Safety is our #1 priority," he told the cameras with practiced sincerity. "This was an isolated incident caused by operator error. We're conducting a full internal investigation." Then he played his trump card. "Unfortunately, we believe this accident may have been related to deliberate sabotage by a recently terminated employee who had expressed dissatisfaction with company policies." He never said my name, he didn't have to. By that evening, 2 police officers were at my door with questions about my whereabouts that morning. And my phone was ringing with calls from former colleagues asking if I'd really done what Lucas was implying. The next morning, I hired an attorney. Harold Greenberg had represented union workers for 40 years and knew every trick companies played to dodge responsibility. "They're trying to make you the scapegoat," Harold said bluntly. "It's actually good strategy on their part. Blame the disgruntled ex-employee, drag your name through the mud, tie everything up in investigations until the heat dies down." "But I wasn't even in the building," I protested. "They have security cameras." Harold nodded. "Which they control. Look, Frank, this isn't about truth, it's about liability. If they can pin this on you, their insurance rates don't go up. They don't face regulatory penalties, and the inevitable lawsuit from Jason focuses on you instead of Ironwood. So what do? We fight back with facts. You said you've documented everything?" "Everything," I confirmed, going back months. "Good. But we need more. We need to know what they're saying internally about the accident." That evening, Terry Baker and Vanessa Morris met me in Harold's office. Both looked nervous, constantly checking their phones. "Lucas called an all-hands meeting after you left," Terry explained. "Said anyone talking to you or the press would be terminated immediately. Made everyone sign new NDAs. But you're here," I said. Terry's weathered face hardened. "I've been there 30 years, Frank. What happened to Jason? That's not what we stand for. Or used to, anyway." Vanessa nodded. "I processed the maintenance requests for accounting. I've got copies of everything Lucas denied over the past 6 months, including 3 separate work orders for that hydraulic press." She handed over a USB drive. "He's been systematically cutting corners everywhere. Not just safety, quality control, environmental compliance, even proper tax withholding. Anything to make the quarterly numbers look better." Harold reviewed the files while we talked. When he looked up, his expression was grim. "This goes beyond negligence," he said. "This is willful endangerment, but it still doesn't prove Frank wasn't involved in the accident." "Maybe this will help," Terry said, pulling out his phone. "I recorded the safety training, or lack thereof, that Lucas gave the temps before putting them on the press. The recording was short. Lucas essentially showed them the power button and the emergency stop, then told them production targets for the shift. That's about 2% of the proper training," I said. "Did Jason get even this much?" "Less," Terry said grimly. "Lucas told him to figure it out and walked away." Harold was furious. "This is completely illegal. Those workers should have had OSHA-mandated training, proper supervision, everything." "That's not all," Vanessa said quietly. "I found something in the company emails yesterday. Lucas knew that press was dangerous. The manufacturer's rep inspected it last month and officially recommended taking it offline until repairs could be made." She pulled up an email on her phone. Lucas's response to the recommendation was brief. "Too expensive. Find workarounds." The room fell silent as the full picture emerged. This wasn't just cost-cutting or ignorance. Lucas had knowingly put workers on dangerous equipment after being explicitly warned of the risks. "He buried the inspection report," Vanessa continued. "It never even made it to the maintenance department." I thought about Jason, 23 years old, lying in a hospital bed, possibly facing life without his arm, all because Lucas Wynn wanted to hit his quarterly targets. "So what's our next move?" I asked Harold. He gathered the evidence we'd collected. "First, we clear your name. Then we make sure Ironwood, and Lucas personally, face the consequences." Terry's phone buzzed. He looked at it, and his face went pale. "What is it?" I asked. "OSHA just showed up at the plant," he said. "Surprise inspection. Lucas is losing his mind." For the first time since I'd been fired, I smiled. Perfect timing. The OSHA inspection of Ironwood Forge lasted 3 days. Patricia Simmons led a team of 6 inspectors who documented over 78 serious violations. Meanwhile, Harold had arranged a meeting with detectives investigating the sabotage allegations against me. With Terry's testimony and security footage showing I hadn't been on the premises, the police quickly determined Lucas's claims were baseless. I was formally cleared, which Harold immediately leaked to the Akron Gazette. Olivia Jimenez's front-page story ran the following Sunday. Whistleblower vindicated. Former manager warned of dangers before horrific industrial accident. The article detailed my warnings, Lucas's cover-up, and the injured worker's condition. Jason had survived but lost his arm below the elbow. The story sparked outrage in the community, especially among families with connections to Ironwood. The company had been part of Akron for generations. Now it was being portrayed, accurately, as a death trap run by a profit-obsessed outsider. Lucas attempted damage control with another press conference, but this time, reporters came armed with specific questions about the ignored manufacturer's warnings and falsified safety records. "These allegations are completely unfounded," Lucas insisted, his composure cracking. "Frank Delaney has a personal vendetta against this company." What Lucas didn't know was that Harold had arranged for Jason Parker to watch the press conference from his hospital room, and that Jason had agreed to an exclusive interview immediately after. Seeing Lucas dismiss the accident that had cost him his arm was the final straw for Jason. On camera, with his bandaged limb clearly visible, he detailed the lack of training, the pressure to meet impossible quotas, and how management ignored warnings about the dangerous press. Frank Delaney tried to shut that machine down, Jason told the interviewer. If they'd listened to him, I'd still have my arm. The interview was devastating. By evening, Ironwood's board of directors called an emergency meeting. The next morning, two things happened. Lucas Wynn was placed on administrative leave pending investigation, and I received a call from Gregory Winters, son of the former owner. Frank, this is Greg Winters. I need your help. I hadn't spoken to Greg in years. After his father retired, Greg had moved to Chicago to pursue other business interests, selling his stake in the company. The board asked me to step in temporarily, he explained. The place is a mess. OSHA's shut down half the production lines. We've got lawsuits pending, and morale is completely shot. Sounds like you've got your hands full, I said, unsure why he was calling me. I need someone who knows the operation inside and out, someone the workers trust. He paused. I want you to come back, Frank, as acting plant manager. I hadn't expected this. You know I'm the one who sent the evidence to OSHA, right? Of course. That's exactly why I want you. You put people's safety above everything else, just like my father taught us. I thought about it. Going back would be strange. There would be those who resented me for the disruption, the lost production, maybe even lost bonuses. But there would also be a chance to rebuild what had been broken. I'll do it on two conditions, I said finally. First, every single safety issue gets fixed before we restart production. No exceptions. Agreed, Greg said immediately. And the second? Jason Parker gets full compensation, best medical care, full salary during recovery, and a guaranteed job when he's ready to return, if he wants it. There was a moment of silence then. Done. When can you start? 3 days later, I walked back through the front doors of Ironwood Forge. The production floor was silent, machines dormant during the safety overhaul. Terry Baker met me with a clipboard of repair orders and a grin. Never thought I'd see you back here, he said as we walked the floor. Makes two of us. We stopped at the hydraulic press that had injured Jason. It was cordoned off with yellow tape, waiting for factory representatives to either repair or replace it. It's going to take time to fix everything Lucas broke, Terry said. I nodded, looking around at the quiet machines and the workers reinstalling guards and safety equipment. Then we better get started. 6 weeks later, Gregory Winters called a company-wide meeting in the main production area. All 300 employees gathered around a temporary stage, an unusual mix of tension and hope in the air. I stood off to the side, watching Greg approach the microphone. Behind him sat the recently reconstituted board of directors, now including 2 retired floor workers and a safety compliance officer. Many of you have been with Ironwood longer than I have, Greg began. You remember when this company stood for something more than just quarterly profits. Today we begin to restore that legacy. He announced a complete restructuring of the company, new safety protocols, increased maintenance budgets, a bonus system tied to both production goals and safety metrics, and a worker representation committee with actual authority. Then Greg paused, his expression hardening. As for the recent leadership that betrayed your trust, I have an update. This morning the board voted unanimously to terminate Lucas Wynn for cause. Additionally, based on evidence of willful negligence, we are cooperating fully with the district attorney's office as they pursue criminal charges. A murmur ran through the crowd. One final announcement, Greg said. From now on, Ironwood Forge will have a new position, Director of Operational Safety and Compliance. This person will have final authority over any decision affecting worker safety, with direct report to the board. Greg gestured toward me. Frank Delaney has agreed to accept this position, effective immediately. The silence broke into applause. Not polite corporate applause, but the genuine appreciation of working people who understood what had been at stake. As I stepped forward, I caught sight of Jason Parker at the back of the room. His left sleeve was pinned up, but he was smiling. He gave me a nod. one that carried both forgiveness and gratitude. I nodded back, then turned to address my colleagues. 3 months after returning to Ironwood, I drove to the county courthouse for Lucas Wynn's arraignment. He faced multiple charges, including criminal negligence resulting in serious bodily injury. I didn't need to be there. The case would proceed with or without my presence, but something in me needed to see it through to the end. Lucas looked smaller somehow in his expensive suit standing before the judge. When he turned and saw me in the gallery, his face flushed with anger. I just watched impassively as he pleaded not guilty and was released on bail. Outside the courthouse, Lucas approached me in the parking lot. "Happy now, Frank?" he demanded. "You've destroyed my career over one accident." "It wasn't just one accident," I replied calmly. "It was a disaster waiting to happen. You knew the risks and chose profit anyway." "That's business," he said dismissively. "No, that's criminal." I turned to leave. "I'll beat these charges," he called after me, "and then I'll sue you for everything you've got." I didn't bother responding. Some men never learn. The following weekend, I visited Jason at his apartment. He was adapting to his prosthetic arm, determined to return to work after completing physical therapy. We sat on his balcony drinking iced tea. "I've been meaning to ask you something," Jason said. "You could have just walked away, found another job. Why'd you fight so hard?" I thought about it. Because some things matter more than a paycheck. When you see something wrong, really wrong, you've got two choices. Look the other way or do something about it. Jason nodded. "Well, I'm glad you did something." As I drove home that evening, I felt a peace I hadn't known in a long time. Ironwood was running safely again. Production numbers were actually up due to better maintenance and morale, and I was doing work that mattered. Sometimes standing your ground means walking away first, but that doesn't mean you're finished.